This episode is about functions of emotions.
Hi, Professor Emotion here. Today's question is trying to understand, why do we have emotions anyway? What good are they? Do they do anything for us? I think this question is really important because as a clinical psychologist, I often work with people who wish they didn't have emotions. To be clear, when people don't want emotions, what they don't want are the bad ones. They don't want to feel sad, they don't want to feel frustrated or angry or anxious. People are generally okay with feeling excited and happy and love and joyful. People usually like those. But when people talk about having emotions or not liking emotions, they're really talking about the negative ones. So why do we have these emotions? Why do we have these negative emotions if they're kind of awful to experience? Well, emotions actually serve a lot of functions. Today I'm going to talk about 5 major functions of emotion. 3 of these are ones that get talked about quite a bit clinically, but all of these researchers have agreed on can be functions of emotion, and I think these are important to understand to maybe become a little more friendly towards those pesky negative emotions.
Just like researchers don't entirely agree on the definition of emotion, there's also not 100% agreement on the functions of emotions or the primary functions of emotions. But comparatively speaking, researchers do tend to agree that emotions do a lot for us. Today I'm going to talk about 5 things that emotions do for us and ways that emotions help us. Emotions help us to do things, to relate to people, to learn, to verify, and to be. I'll talk about each one of these in turn. Emotions help us do things. One of the components of emotion is action urges. It's built into the emotional process that emotions help move us in particular directions depending on the emotion. So if you think about fear, for example, you might have heard of the fight or flight or freeze reflex. These are how the body helps us respond to significant fear. So think about either fighting a bear, which is a traditional example, or maybe something more realistic, like you're walking down an alley alone at night and you hear someone behind you. Your body is preparing you to either fight, like grab keys from your pocket or your purse, to run away, or potentially to sort of freeze and not be able to move. This is your body kind of helping us do things and activating ourselves as being ready to move. Emotions essentially physically prepare us to act. Now, the tricky thing is sometimes the action urge is not something that we actually probably want to do, or there are negative consequences. So if an action urge associated with anger is to attack, we probably don't want to punch a person in the face because that could get us into trouble, harm the other person. There's lots of reasons to sort of fight against that action urge. So in that case, how do emotions help us to do things? Well, we know that emotions can help performance. So there's a lot of really cool new research on how different emotions actually influence our behaviors in ways that we want them to.
So sadness, for example, helps people think more analytically, more kind of detailed, helps us actually zone in where we need to. Happiness helps people think more creatively. Anger helps people act more assertively. So if you need to, say, ask for your boss for a raise or confront somebody who maybe has been rude to you, getting a little bit angry can actually be helpful. Fear gets people out of threatening situations. Even anxiety at moderate levels has been shown to increase performance. Very low anxiety actually tends to be associated with worse performance, just like very high anxiety. Why is that? Well, very low anxiety, people tend to sort of just say like, it's cool, I can do it. And then they're not focused, they're not kind of zoned in. They don't have the attention. On the high side, when somebody's really, really anxious, they're so in their head and so anxious that they also can't focus. A moderate level of anxiety actually tends to improve performance. So one of the main functions of emotions is they help us do things.
Emotions help us to relate to other people. When we express our emotion, we can actually communicate much faster and more effectively than words. Have you ever tried to watch a movie without the sound or a movie in another language than the one you speak? You can kind of tell what's going on. You can at least tell how the characters are feeling, in large part because of the emotions that they're expressing. Emotions help us connect to people. Emotions serve a really important social function. They help us increase, primarily, or decrease potentially, closeness with other people. Think about it. Do you have any close friends? Not acquaintances, not people you sort of chum around with, make jokes with, but close friends who you feel really connected to, who've never shared an emotion with you? Probably not. Emotions really help us connect to other people. Sometimes we think that to be able to share an emotion with somebody else, they have to get into our circle of trust, right? That they have to be a friend first before we can show our vulnerable emotions to them. It is possible that it works the other way around, that by increasing our expression of emotion and sharing with other people, that allows us to become closer with others. Emotions can also help us influence others, right? You see motivational speakers, you see politicians who really get through to you. A lot of them use emotion. Emotions help us connect to other people. They help us relate to someone else's experience, and they help other people relate to us.
When we experience sadness and we share that with another person, that helps us get sympathy and compassion. If you've ever seen the great Disney movie Inside Out, there's really good examples of that in there about how sadness helps bring people to you and helps give you the support that you might want when you're sad. Anger can help intimidate somebody. Sometimes when we have an emotion, relating doesn't actually mean bringing people in, it means pushing people away a little bit. There's also interesting research to show that when people are experiencing an emotion, there's what's called nonverbal synchrony or matching. We tend to actually match the emotional expressions of somebody else who's experiencing emotion. That's one of those ways that helps us feel connected to other people through their emotions and our own.
Emotions also help us to learn. Emotions help us learn things about ourselves and the world around us. That happens because emotions tell us what's important. We don't have emotions about things that don't matter to us. So if you're feeling angry, it's probably because something matters. Maybe a sense of justice is important to you. If you're feeling anxious about something that's coming up, like a work project, that's probably because it matters to you how you do on that project, or maybe how you appear to your coworkers. Emotions tell us what's important. If we can tune into that, that allows us to learn things about ourselves and how we're responding to both ourselves and the world around us.
So if I feel sad because sometimes my job as a professor and my role as a mother and a wife actually keeps me from seeing my friends, sometimes I feel sad about that. And so then I think when I'm feeling a little bit bummed and I'm feeling a little bit sad, I start thinking, why am I sad? And I could say, well, I shouldn't care about those things, but you know what? I do. So tuning into my emotions helps me realize, okay, well, maybe I need to take a little bit of time off and have lunch with a friend or call somebody I haven't talked to in a while so that I can get that connection. Emotions help me learn about what's important to me, what I care about, and what I should do next.
Emotions help us to verify. This is a bit of a newer concept. The idea is that emotions help us verify who we are as people. Human beings in general like to see themselves as consistent across time and situation. That kind of makes sense because if we don't see ourselves as consistent, we don't really feel like ourselves. The alternative is kind of awkward and uncomfortable. If we're not ourselves and we're not consistent, then who are we? A lot of people don't want to get into that. And so emotions actually can help us verify that we're feeling like ourselves. So some research recently has suggested that we might, not consciously much of the time, actually seek out emotions that verify how we think about ourselves.
Think about somebody who feels sad, who maybe feels like they have really low self-esteem, and do you think they're going to be likely to approach activities that will make them feel happier? What if happiness feels uncomfortable or unfamiliar because it's not an emotion they're used to experiencing? This is actually really important as a therapist, because as a therapist, we want people to feel a broad range of emotions typically. But if somebody is using sadness as a way to verify who they are, that feels like themselves, it's actually going to make it much harder to help them do the things that might actually get them out of a depressive episode or a funk or whatever it is they happen to be doing. But emotions really can help us say, okay, I'm an anxious person. I feel anxious. This is familiar to me. Sometimes feeling things differently than how we normally feel is actually pretty scary. So those emotions really help us verify who we are as a person.
Emotions help us to be. This feels like a big thing, but essentially, human beings want autonomy and competence. Autonomy essentially means that we want to be in control of our behavior. We want to be able to do things on our own. We want to be independent. We also desire to be successful. We want to be able to master tasks. We want to be good at things that matter to us. Emotions can help us do this. They can help us become more autonomous and competent.
So feeling frustrated, for example, that you can't do something yet might actually help you realize that you need to do it a little bit differently, might help you achieve the competence that you want. Emotions are kind of a barometer. I had a supervisor in grad school when I was learning how to do therapy who said, emotions are data. I think this is a pretty nerdy way to talk, but I love that. Emotions are data. They're information. Information about the world, information about who we think we are, and information about who we want to be, and thus what we want to do and who we want to spend time with. Emotions can help us do all of these things. Emotions help us do stuff better. They help us relate to people. They help us learn about ourselves, about other people. Emotions help us verify and reiterate to ourselves who we think we are and help us achieve our goals. Emotions, even the negative ones, can be pretty amazing things. And if we can become friends with our emotions and help them help us, we'll probably be better off.